In the winter of 1953, a small, quiet town in North Carolina found itself at the heart of a nightmare. A story that would blur the lines between reality and legend, turning neighbor against neighbor and sparking a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. It began with the unexplained deaths of a few dogs, but quickly spiraled into a storm of fear, panic, and nationwide headlines. They called it a vampire, a monster, and eventually the Beast of Bladenboro. This isn't just a story about a mysterious animal. It's about how fear can grip a community, how rumors can travel faster than truth, and how the human imagination can conjure monsters in the dark. For weeks, an unknown predator stalked the swamps and farmlands, killing and mutilating animals, evading hundreds of armed hunters, and leaving behind tracks that baffled experts. More than 70 years later, one question still echoes through the tall pines of North Carolina. What really stalked the town of Bladenboro? To understand the story, you have to understand the place. Bladenboro, North Carolina, was, and still is, a small rural town surrounded by swamps, forests, and farmland. In the 1950s, it was the kind of place where nights were silent, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the wind whispering through the trees. The nearby big swamp was a world of its own, dense, dark, and largely unexplored. It was a place of shadows, home to snakes, wildcats, and countless other creatures rarely seen by human eyes. Locals had always shared whispers of strange things seen deep in the swamp, but nothing could have prepared them for what was about to crawl out of the darkness. The terror began on December 29, 1953. In the nearby town of Clarkton, a dog was found killed under bizarre circumstances. Witnesses claimed to have seen a sleek, black creature, about 5 feet long, slinking away into the night. 2 days later, on New Year's Eve, the nightmare arrived in Bladenboro. A resident woke to a horrific scene. His 2 beloved dogs were dead near their kennels, their bodies crushed and torn apart. Blood stained the porch. One of the dogs had been dragged away completely. Johnny Voss, whose family owned the dogs, later described the chilling events of that night. He said the creature wasn't satisfied with killing them just once. It returned multiple times throughout the night, dragging the bodies away, and even came back to reclaim a dog they had already wrapped in a blanket for burial. The injuries were unlike anything the locals had ever witnessed. Heads were torn open, jaws were ripped off, and bodies were crushed with immense force. But the strangest part, the animals were found almost completely drained of blood. As January 1954 dawned, the killings accelerated into a horrifying pattern. On January 1st, 2 more dogs were found dead on a farm. The very next night, another dog was killed. By January 3rd, the body count was rising, with more dogs discovered mutilated across the area. An autopsy performed on one of the victims revealed something deeply disturbing. There was almost no blood left in the body. Its jaw had been shattered, and internal injuries suggested a force strong enough to crush bone with ease. Soon, the beast expanded its menu. On January 5th, a pet rabbit was found cleanly decapitated, its body still warm. Later, a goat was discovered with its head flattened, as if it had been stomped on by something incredibly powerful. Whatever was out there, it was strong, it was precise, and it was relentless. As panic spread like wildfire, sightings began pouring in. The descriptions were terrifyingly inconsistent. Some said the creature was 4 to 5 feet long, dark, with a bushy tail, looking like a cross between a bear and a panther. Others swore it was a massive cat, far larger than any they had ever seen. One witness even claimed there were 2 of them, a large one and a smaller one running right beside it. Then came the sounds. Multiple people reported hearing an eerie, high-pitched cry in the dead of night. They said it sounded like a baby crying in the dark. A young boy, Dalton Norton, claimed a big cat stood on his porch making that exact sound before it vanished into the shadows. Another woman described encountering what she thought was a mountain lion. It charged toward her and only fled when her terrified screams split the night air. Hunters who examined the tracks found near the attacks were just as confused. The prints showed claws over an inch long and suggested an animal weighing between 80 and 90 pounds. But even more unsettling, in several locations, they found 2 sets of tracks, one large, one small, running together. The quiet nights in Bladenboro were over. By January 3rd, Police Chief Roy Fors had organized search parties with trained hunting dogs. But something bizarre happened. The dogs, bred for tracking, got one sniff of the trail and refused to follow it. They whined and tucked their tails, terrified of whatever had left the scent. Soon, hunters began arriving from all over the state, armed and ready for a fight. On January 5th, over 500 people flooded the woods. The next day, that number swelled to more than 800. The great hunt was on. There was even a desperate plan to tie up live dogs as bait to lure the creature out, but public outrage and safety concerns quickly put a stop to that idea. The hunt descended into chaos. Gunfire echoed through the swamp day and night, and officials grew terrified that a hunter would be accidentally shot in the frenzy. Despite thousands of footprints, dozens of tracking dogs, and hundreds of armed men combing every inch of the swamp, the beast was never even seen, let alone cornered. It was like it had vanished into thin air. Then, on January 13th, came a breakthrough. Or so it seemed. A local farmer named Luther Davis trapped and shot a large bobcat in the Big Swamp. The mayor of Bladenboro, Woodrow Fussell, eager to calm the public, quickly announced to the press that the Beast of Bladenboro was dead. On that very same day, another man hit and killed a large spotted cat with his car. And a third hunter also claimed to have killed the creature. Confusion reigned. Photographs of the dead bobcat were released, but doubts immediately surfaced. Experts and seasoned hunters questioned whether a bobcat, which typically weighs around 20 to 30 pounds, could have possibly inflicted such brutal damage on large farm dogs, let alone drain them of blood. No single animal could be definitively proven to be the one true beast. The killing stopped, but the mystery was far from solved. So, if it wasn't the bobcat, what was it? Theories exploded. Some were convinced it was a cougar or a mountain lion that had wandered far from its known territory, even though wildlife officials insisted none lived in the region. Others suggested it was a wolf, a wolverine, or even a large, aggressive coyote. One of the more grounded theories claimed the beast was actually a powerful hybrid dog. A specific German shepherd and hound mix named Big Boy, known for its size and strength, was a prime suspect. Even veterinarians at the time said this was a plausible explanation. And then there were those who believed the entire event was a product of mass hysteria, exaggerated by fear and sensational media coverage. But each explanation had its own flaws. A cougar couldn't explain the baby-like cries. A dog couldn't explain the cat-like tracks. And mass hysteria couldn't explain the very real, very dead animals. The media certainly played its part. Newspapers from across the country latched onto the story, plastering headlines with words like vampire, beast, and monster. The story went viral, 1950s style. Ironically, Mayor Fussell later admitted he thought the story was at least partly a hoax, but he also famously said that a little publicity never hurts a town. Bladenboro was now on the map. It became famous. People sold bumper plates that proudly read, "Home of the Beast of Bladenboro." The town's terror was slowly turning into its legend. In the years that followed, similar strange animal deaths were reported in nearby counties, reviving old fears and keeping the legend alive. Today, Bladenboro fully embraces its monstrous heritage. The town hosts an annual festival called Beast Fest, where the creature, now affectionately nicknamed Bob, serves as the town's official mascot. What once brought terror to their doorsteps now brings tourists and defines their identity. So we return to the original question, what was the Beast of Bladenboro, a vicious wildcat? A rogue dog, a pack of multiple animals hunting together? Or was it just a perfect storm of coincidence, fear, and rumor, growing into something monstrous in the minds of a terrified community? Perhaps the true beast wasn't the creature lurking in the swamp, but the fear that grew in the hearts of the people, and yet, the evidence remains. The dead animals, the strange tracks, the terrified witnesses. When the woods of Bladenboro fall silent at night, and you hear something that sounds just like a baby crying out there in the dark, you realize some legends refuse to die. The Beast of Bladenboro still prowls, if not in flesh and blood, then in memory, waiting for the next story to be told. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into the unknown, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more mysteries.